Okay, I'm gonna get started, folks. So thank you for coming. As people come trickling in, I'll just get us underway here. So for those I haven't met, my name's Connor McManus. I'm the chief for DEM's Division of Marine Fisheries, joined by my colleagues today from the DEM's Director's Office, as well as Coastal Resources and the rest of the Marine Fisheries staff, and going over what we plan to submit for the spend plan for the Consolidated Appropriations Act Fisheries Assistance Program. So I'm going to share my screen now. If someone could let me know if they see my screen okay.
Looks good.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you all for joining for this today. Again, we're going to be going over the overall spend plan that we're going to be submitting to NOAA for the Consolidated Appropriations Act. I'll briefly go through just some background for those of you for the first time being introduced to this. Back in December of 2020, Congress enacted this Appropriations Act, and the act included $300 million for funding for COVID-related fisheries assistance. And of which 255 million.
Connor, if you could go to presentation mode, it'll be a little bigger on our screen.
Oh, sure. I thought that was on it. How about that?
Thank you.
Is that good? Okay. So yes, 255 million of that 300 was allocated for fisheries assistance in the coastal states. And then NOAA Fisheries announced this back at the end of March. So Rhode Island's original allocation was 300,000. NOAA and the ASMFC drew a portion of this, of these funds for administrative costs, as well as for our program. We'll be drawing just over $30,000 to administer the program, which is roughly a 70% cut from what we went through the last round, due to being able to fine tune and streamline things. So what we're looking at for Rhode Island's final allocation for the Consolidated Appropriations Act is just over $2,929,000. So the basis of the allocation is similar to what was used for the CARES Act, using readily available total annual revenue information on various sectors such as commercial fishing, charter fishing, aquaculture, and then processor and seafood sectors. And although, again, there was no original requirement to do so, Rhode Island's allocation has and is planned to be distributed based on these proportions originally put forth and what we used originally in the CARES Act as well. Final proportions may vary based on the number of eligible participants applying in each sector and the amount of their claims, but this is what we've begun allocating for the spend plan. And here is just a breakdown of what these numbers look like. So these numbers account for the administrative costs removed, but as you can see, the allocation percentages themselves are similar to last time. And the amounts here are just slightly reduced based on the smaller amount of funds compared to the last round, which I believe was just over $3 million. And it just could staff confirm that they're still able to see the main slides as presented, or is there presenter mode, or?
It looks good, Connor.
Okay, great, excellent. So just some major points to hit home here for eligibility. Much of this is the same as the CARES Act for those of you who were involved in that or who had applied. Eligible fishery participants must have incurred a documented fisheries related loss of greater than 35% relative to the average fishery related revenue earned during the same reference period over the past 5 years, which we will get into those specifically by sector. And again, applicants cannot seek funds that would make them more than whole in 2020 relative to that annual revenue average earned across the past 5 years. So what I'll do here is I'm going to walk through each of the sectors really briefly on some of the information that we've received to date, as well as some information that we'll be seeking from you for the applications, just to make you aware, and then some general comments at the end. And so I'll take pauses after each sector discussion. So as many of you know, what we've been really looking to do to date for this Consolidated Appropriations Act is figure out both the allocation breakdown by sector and the reference period that should be used to try and understand or base the loss detections on. So here we've begun with party and charter. Through this stakeholder meeting process and other conversations, we've received mixed information based on perceived losses, given both the variability within the sector of charter boats versus party boats, as well as just the mixed nature of within charter boat fishing operations. And so, for example, we had received some feedback of trying to extend it across 2 different calendar years, which made determining being made more than whole hard to do, as well as we've received some feedback from August to December 2020. But as discussed in our last meeting, based on examining federal VTR party and charter data, it seemed that most of the losses had occurred from May through December 2020 for the overall fleet. And so as such, this is what we propose to move forward with for the spend plan, and as we had presented in our last stakeholder meeting. As you may recall too, in this sector, we have subsectors to try and acknowledge the fact that there are differences between the party and head boat fleets, as well as the charter fleet. So we have, using the same breakdowns that we used in the CARES Act, we have within this sector subdivided it between these 2 different groups, allowing for sub allocations within. Of course, if a sub allocation was not fully utilized, that would be allowed for rollover to the other, but this allows for a first initial access to those funds for those different fleets, just as with other subsectors, or with other sectors rather. And from the party and head boat, party and charter descriptions, we're using MRIP definitions for that to guide whether a boat is party or charter, although we will ask you to declare that on the applications as well. And then if for this type of application, we're using the same metrics that we used last time to determine costs for trips, which was based on a study by Lavelle et al. In 2020, using guide trip costs and tip fees to try and estimate estimated losses. And so just kind of giving a bit of bird's eye view for the applications itself and the affidavit. These are some of the information that we're going to be seeking in terms of what you would fill out: license number, whether you're a party or charter operation, federal permit number as applicable, vessel name and number as such. And like with many of the other sectors, it's self-certified. So, but if you are in more than one sector, you would complete a different application for each sector that you're applying to. And then any supporting data that you have to prove your history, such as trip records. So before I move to aquaculture, are there any questions for party on the party and charter portion of the spend plan? And I can't see see in the presenter mode right now.
I'm not seeing any hands raised, Connor.
Okay, great. And then I think if you're on a cell phone, I believe that you can hit *6 to unmute yourself and *9 to raise your hand for reference. So if you have a question, just feel free to raise your hand at these different points, and happy to hop back as needed. So just speaking to looking to aquaculture now, we've throughout meetings as well as discourse with people providing comments directly to us. In between such meetings, we've received strong feedback of maintaining the same reference period as we had in the CARES Act. That would be from March to May 2020. And this, again, this was driven by stakeholder feedback, not additional analyses like we informed for party and charter. This is much of the same for what we went through for the CARES Act, but just as a bit of background, the types of information that we'll be seeking in the application process is site or business specific information such as your scent number with the coastal CRMC rather, aquaculture license number, company name or doing business as, and then the partners and the co-owners of that application or of that specific site. And again, if you are a farmer or aquaculturist, but then you also have commercial fishing business or something of that nature or processor, you would file separate applications for each of those. And similar to last time, much of the information that we would be using to try and do some of the verifications are dealer reports, asset reports, and sales slips. So that's just a summary for aquaculture. Is there any questions or comments on that? Okay, I see some hands raised. Amelia, feel free to go.
Yeah, it's Greg Duckworth here. So you move the slide pretty quick, but is that the exact same window that you used for aquaculture for the first round?
Correct. Yes, that was
all right, so let me just say, so I mean, I hear some people talk and they say like generally they're like, oh, well, the DEM should just do what they did last time because, I was happy with that. But if I'm understanding this right, if you use the exact same window as last time, and then you were already made whole for the exact same window, then you would be ineligible to have a claim. That's why I'm a little confused on why you're picking the exact same window.
So I guess a couple quick notes. So this is only for aquaculture.
Correct, but the same principles would, apply to everything. But yeah, okay.
Yep, and so I guess the notion is that for some of these groups, there are still some unclaimed losses that occurred, and so they would be looking to try and still claim losses for that period.
Okay, understood.
But if there are others from the sector or from other aquaculturists on the call and would like to share and provide further comment, that's totally welcomed as well.
Okay, thank you.
Connor,
Connor, are you able to see?
If you want me to address it, but we had a Ocean State Aquaculture Association meeting, and the consensus was that the vast majority wanted to stick with the same dates because markets sort of stiffened up later in the year.
Thank you, Skid.
So it'll be the same people who qualified in the last round will qualify in this round unless they've already been made whole.
Connor, I don't know if you can see the chat, but there's also a question from Jeff Gardner in there. Can we use the same application as last round then?
Good question, Jeff. I would say that there might be some small tweaks that we may make. We're going to try and make it as easy as possible as last time to not further complicate things. There may be a couple other aspects that we'll look to amend, particularly things like EID numbers or EIN numbers rather, and things that we had probably should have included the last time that we had to go out and search for post hoc. So we'll make some additions and edits to the application, as well as we'll be working to build somewhat of a template that allows people to, like a calculator, to kind of estimate their losses to avoid arithmetic errors and such, to again help expedite the review process. So largely speaking, I don't know if it'll be possible to just submit the exact same one, but the application will be very similar ideally, or we're anticipating it'll be very similar. So to reduce any issues for applicants. I don't think there's any other hands up, but if there are, feel free to unmute.
Connor, I had a question. It's Cam Ennis.
Hey, Cam.
How much notice do you think you'll be able to provide before the 2-week application period begins in August?
It's a good question.
Notice to notice. I know it's hypothetical, but
we could, it's kind of, we have a little bit of flexibility to do, multiple weeks, of notice prior to opening the application period. I think one of the tools that we'll try to use to get people to start thinking about it as well is data requests. So that will be a primary tool that we'll use, and so we'll likely open data requests up well before the application period to get those to start coming in, as so that would allow for people to start getting their applications together prior.
and if I may ask a follow-up question,
Sure.
will the same data requests and packages due from the last period? Because, it's a busy time of year, and for instance, our co-op put together all these packages for all the members, or do they have to submit a new data request?
I think we can evaluate that internally. I would urge people to, if your numbers are the same, then it shouldn't be an issue, particularly for this sector. And we have most of that data in-house. I guess the question would be whether people plan to apply or not. So we wouldn't necessarily issue data requests to folks who don't plan on applying. But if people are looking to apply, we can confirm with them that it's this, that what their data is. I would suggest people looking for a data request to apply again. But for some of the sectors where the impact or the reference period would be the same, then I would imagine that it would be pretty quick, or the same numbers exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I mean, the data is going to be exactly the same as for the last time. So
Right.
it's the same reference period, the same sales, the same 5 years. It's nothing really changes.
Right, for this sector, yep. But to your point, Skip, I guess the question would be if theoretically, if people who are reapplying because they have unclaimed losses, that they would be all set. For those who chose not to apply last time for whatever reason, or realize that they would be able to qualify after further thought, we would strongly suggest them to reach out. Okay, so I will move on to seafood processors. We got very similar feedback on the reference period for seafood processors. Some of the same justification that was apparent for aquaculture, in that March to May was their preference. It's just like the last round, based on feedback from the last 2 meetings that we've held on the topic. For the affidavit, some of the information that we'll be seeking are things such as business name, dealer license number, DOH dealer license number, federal dealer permit number. Again, if you are applying for more than one sector, fill out multiple applications, and we'll be using dealer reports and sales records as such to confirm and verify losses. Any questions on that? All right, I don't see any hands, but if your hands are up, feel free to comment. All right, seeing or hearing nothing, I will move on to commercial fishing. So for the reference period here, we originally received strong feedback to include summer months that were not included in the last round of funding. in the last meeting, we took a look at 2020 Rhode Island safest information compared to the 2015 and 19 average, and it appeared that losses did occur through July. So the goal of this was to try and figure out what summer months to actually include. So when we thought about this some more, and looking at the numbers, it seemed like defining July as the end of the summer of losses would be most beneficial to commercial harvesters. And so we brought this recommendation forth in our last meeting, although at the last meeting as well, we had additional feedback that recommended including the month of April as well, because it had sounded as though many people from March, April, May in the last relief funds did not, just barely miss the 35% threshold. And so by including April, this would actually be helpful for folks. So what we have currently in the spend plan is a period of April through July of 2020 as the reference period. And so again, commercial fishing specific info, vessel name, registration number, permit number, your Rhode Island DEM license number, as well as your name, of course. And we will just ask that you confirm that your vessel is commercially declared, which I think we had. That was one of these additions that we needed after the fact last time, or we're working with people as they file their application. So we'll make that clear in the application. And I will say that we found as well last time is that for businesses that were particularly in the commercial fishing sector that had more than one owner as part of a business, you would submit one application per business. So if there may be multiple people who are jointly in a given business, but that application would only come in once. When we would process it once, as opposed to each individual of that business claiming it as their own across multiple within their other applications. And so we'll be looking at dealer reports and as well as dockside sales reports to try and verify losses. So any comments on commercial fishing? Good staff to Greg. I think that's Greg.
Yeah, for the reference period, you said April through July. If you go back to that screen, was that the beginning of July or the end of July?
It's proposed now the entire month.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, any other comments or questions? Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so I'll move on. So these are somewhat general comments over the whole process or the spend plan itself. So we're going to target to have a 15-day application period, just like we did last time, but we'll do our best based on the comments tonight to make sure people are aware of that period well ahead of time and are prepared to submit applications on time. And similar to last time, there is you'll have to claim other forms of assistance, and that includes the prior CARES Act assistance, other unemployment insurance or forgivable PPP loans. However, certain forms of assistance do not apply, such as USDA tariff relief. And so while we don't have an exhaustive list of all the ones that do and don't apply, if you have questions, you can reach out to us and inquire as to whether a certain program or something may count towards one's claim. But much of the ones that much of the claims or assistance packages would count against it, although there's just a few that may not. And if the total claims are less than a sector allocation, full payout after verification would occur. And if total claims are more, a prorated custom approach would be used based on the verified claims, just similar to which I think many of you experienced last time. The exception here would be for charter boats, which based on the last CARES Act process, if this, instead of doing the prorated approach, each participant would receive equal payment based on the number of all verified claims. And just going through a couple of other general comments. So when applying, applicants consent to give DEM access to their information and check other data sources not provided to verify losses. And applicants consent to have their application shared with the Department of Revenue to determine if there are any outstanding tax obligations that need to be addressed prior to receiving assistance. As well, in the event that it happens, applicants consent to any audits that may be performed by the state, NOAA, or Office of Inspector General, just in the event that audits are required. So following the close of the application period, letters of eligibility or denial will be issued, and the claimants will have 15 days from the receipt of this letter to appeal the decision if they choose to do so. And the appeals are not allowed for late applications. The basis for an appeal is based on the eligibility and based on that defined criteria or the amount of individual awards. And again, just to iterate that, the Division of Taxation will, before processing checks, they will verify that applicants are in good taxation standing in order to get their funds. And similar to last time, the checks will be issued by the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, and we'll likely do that once we have the final list of awardees and submit them all at once. If there are some instances where we have some outstanding issues that are slowing that process, we will reevaluate, but our goal is to try and get this swiftly done with ASMFC in one shot, is to reduce admin on their side and time on their end. So, but hopefully that should be quick and seamless. And just, in thinking about this further, if there are any unclaimed funds, in an event to not have them revert back to NOAA or the federal agencies, we will use them to support Rhode Island seafood marketing initiatives through the seafood marketing program. This is highly unlikely based on the claims that we received in the CARES Act, but it's a clause to ensure that if there are unclaimed funds by all sectors after looking at the losses, we would try and get that money to support local seafood marketing programs here in Rhode Island. This is also a tool, or program, that allows us to put that effort funds, if they were available, towards new or coexisting efforts, and would allow for a expedited use of the funds, and as well as a faster review process for the spend plan with NOAA. So while highly unlikely, I would imagine, just as it would be a backstop here to allow for us to help with seafood marketing efforts in the event, as opposed to reverting funds. So just next steps for this process, we hope to submit the spend plan ideally towards the end of this week or early next week at the latest. And concurrently, as NOAA is reviewing the spend plan, we would prepare the emergency regulations for the program and then submit them upon approval of the spend plan from NOAA. And which, again, is just emphasizing again that it would be a 15-day application period. As soon as the spend plan is approved, we hope to start initiating data requests for the program and finalize applications to get on the web. And again, we will look to do this as fast as possible in order to make sure that applicants have plenty of time to both get data requests in to us and fill out their applications, as well as enough lead time, because we know it's a busy time for people harvesting or attending to their businesses. And similar to last meetings, all of the information from pertaining to the program, including the final spend plan, the data request portal, regulations, et cetera. This presentation, both the slides as well as the recording, will be posted to the DEM Division of Marine Fisheries website. And we'll try and we won't try and flood your inbox too much, but we'll try and be consistent and communicate well all of the progression for the application periods and various announcements that relate to this program on our listserv, just to make sure everybody is up to date and is aware of deadlines and opening periods. And as always, if you have any questions pertaining to the program, you can email me directly, and my email's here below. So with that's the end of my slides. Maybe I'll stop sharing and look to see if there are any other questions. And just as a reminder for folks in the phone, if you hit *6, it should unmute you if you have any burning questions. But if not, no worries either. Okay, well, I don't see many other hands raised, so in the event to let you all have your evening, I'll say thank you for joining. And again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me at connor.mcmanus@dem.ri.gov. And all of our information on the program to date will be on our website as soon as possible. So feel free to reach out with any other questions. But other than that, thanks for joining, and hope to talk to you all soon.
Thank you, Connor.
Thanks, Connor.
Thanks, Connor.
Thanks, Connor.